And we are live with another episode of Sci-Fi Power Hour-ish. This is going to be an hour-long program where we talk about movie stuff and entertainment stuff. The big breaking news this week is a article that was pretty much done by Bob Iger, an interview done by Bob Iger. There's also some other news of the week, like apparently someone drew Batman's dick in a comic book.
Yeah, I heard about that news.
Um,
and then they had to censor it out.
Well, I mean, if you get the uncensored version, the M, like, it's not called M-rated in comics. It's called something else, like Max or like something like that, ultra rated or whatever. Basically, that's like uncensored hardcore violence. It came about in the late 80s, early 90s because people wanted to do edgier comics. But anyway, if you have one of those things, you can see it. And frankly speaking, I mean, I know Batman's supposed to be the peak of human fitness and everything, but
I thought Superman was supposed to be the peak of human fitness.
Well, Superman's an alien, so he's like off the charts. But Batman's supposed to be the peak of human fitness. Basically, physically speaking, Batman is the equivalent to Captain America. Like peak human fitness, above, like, basically, like Batman is as strong as you can be using normal means, using ordinary means. So training, exercise, weightlifting, like he's as capable as a human being can be using normal means. However, he can get his ass kicked by people who use extraordinary means. So like Bane or Dr. Freeze, people who have superpowers can kick his ass. So that's why he's always, I have to be prepared for everything. But anyway, yeah, so I guess we can get started with this thing. I guess we can start with the Bob Iger interview, which I will leave a link in the chat so that we can follow along, or you can follow along as I read this, and then basically give our thoughts on his responses. Okay, then there you go, Bob Iger. Yes, we know, Bob. Okay, the start of this is pretty puff PC. So once you get that out the way, you get to the actual question and answer section. So here we go. Amid all the industry upheaval, from your seat, what is the content industry going to look like in 5 years? Bob Iger says, you call it upheaval. I guess that's one way to describe it. I believe we have to look at this as opportunity versus threat. Meaning, I've tried to manage this company in a way that enables us to not only survive, but to thrive in a world that doesn't look anything like the world that existed just a few years ago.
See, let me try to reread this just so I can get exactly what he's saying. Okay, so from what I understand, what he's saying is that they had to look at what could be a potential threat before we could do any actions.
Right? Well, I mean, partially. I mean, in the follow-up question, basically, the industry is changing. Like dedicated, like the cable model is dying, or at least it's not. If it's not dying, it's diminishing from what it used to be. So basically, they're going to have to change how they produce content and get content to people, and therefore monetize their content. Before, they used to be able to do a lot of stuff with just, we make a movie, we license a movie out to cable or Netflix or, back in the day, Blockbuster or Redbox, and we get our money, and that's how we get our money. And some of it, you buy directly from Disney at exorbitantly marked up prices, as anyone who has a Disney store near them can tell you.
Right.
But that model is kind of going away, especially with their media. So basically, they're going to create their own streaming service, which is what he's been doing, which kind of leads into the second question. He says, how specifically? So he says there are 3 ways to do that. The first is to make great content, and this is very relevant to the Fox acquisition. The second is to be incredibly innovative about how you bring that content to market. By the way, there isn't a better example than Netflix. The third is to be truly global in nature. So, I mean, that's basically what I just said. Like, I mean, it comes down to content. The Fox acquisition where they bought like 50% of Fox's non-sports, non-news stuff.
Right.
Like that, you know, they're doing that so they can create their own network. So that they can have content on their own network. It's probably going to be kind of shitty at first. In terms of the content, but I guarantee you within the next 3 or 4 years, it's probably going to be something that it's not going to compete with Netflix. It'll probably be a tier down from Netflix because Netflix has so much content that it's ridiculous. This is going to be more specialized, but it's still going to be, you're probably going to want it if you like Disney's stuff. So that's what they're going for.
And speaking of Netflix, there was one of the interview questions mentions Netflix somewhere.
Yeah, I think that was the second question, how specifically, when he says there isn't a better example of Netflix is in being innovative on how you bring content to the market. So the streaming service advances the second and third goals. So he says it's a direct relationship with customers, the ability to provide more customized, personalized experiences, new ways to monetize, a proximity to a customer that doesn't have intermediaries. You're going to see growth in direct-to-consumer businesses. You're probably going to see less channel watching. We're already seeing that. You're probably going to see less bundling of channels and more selling of specific brands, programs, etc. So, like I just said, you know, earlier, it's this all of this shit that you've been seeing with Disney buying up things and acquiring things. It's also that they can basically get their streaming service, probably streaming services. So they, at this point, they also bought Hulu. They own like 67% of Hulu. So they're probably going to beef up Hulu since they own like over half of it. You're probably going to see when they launch their Disney service a bigger presence of certain things. They aren't going to cancel shit. I don't think The Simpsons is going to get canceled. I don't think.
Much to the dismay of various.
Yeah, some people are mad about it, but at this point, like, even though I'm not really into The Simpsons like I used to be, I still don't want to see it go away since it's such a cornerstone of pop culture. Kind of like, you know, it was kind of sad to see Seinfeld go off, even though I know a lot of people love Seinfeld. I never did, but I know there are people who love that show, and they were sad when it left. So, yeah, you know, nothing really, you know, we already talked about this. How do you see recent interest in premium content from the digital giants? He says, I'm impressed with what has been accomplished at Netflix and Amazon, but none of them is either Disney or Marvel or Pixar or Star Wars or National Geographic or FX or Searchlight or Avatar. I could go on. So we enter the business that they're in many respects with an advantage from a content perspective that will enable us to focus on quality rather than just volume. So basically, like, it's going to be a smaller service with less shit, but it's going to have these storied brands. The problem is that like, there comes a point where there's a danger of oversaturation.
Right, because as well as monopolization.
I mean, to a point with monopolization, but not really, because, I mean, you can still get a lot of this stuff through other means without going through them. But not in the way that they're going. But, you know. So he says, so another question they get is, AT&T CEO Randall Stevenson recently compared Netflix to Walmart. Do you agree? And he says, well, I happen to like Walmart. We do a lot of business with them. So maybe I'd say it in a different way. They're a volume play with a lot of quality within their volume. And we're going to be a quality play with enough volume and enough scale to provide the consumer with good price to value, with a good price to value relationship.
Well, to be fair, he's not wrong. Walmart.
That Netflix is like Walmart?
Yeah, because Netflix tends because I see people tend to overhype Netflix as the future, even as if they're gonna as if it's nothing but good programs,
Well,
only to find out that it has equal amount of bad quality programs, just as you watch on TV or movies.
well, no. The attraction to Netflix is that for what you pay, like you pay you pay $13 and you get access to a huge volume of stuff. Only about 10 to 15% you're gonna like. But the thing is that 10-15% of like thousands of like 3,000 is a bigger number of shit to watch than 15% of 300. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I mean that's the glory of Netflix. It's like people like, okay, back in the day before Netflix came out, people would collect normal storage media to watch movies. Like if I wanted to have the same level of uh, access to content that I have with Netflix, with physical media, I would never have enough space in my house. You get what I'm saying?
yeah,
That's why Netflix is considered to be the standard, because it has this huge volume of content. Like even if Disney takes away their Marvel stuff, like Netflix has all this other shit on there that you can watch. And here's the thing, sometimes you find things on Netflix that you may have not been like, okay, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this, but some of it's really good, like how they do those documentaries and stuff like that. Like there's some good stuff on there. I'm not saying, look, listen, anytime you have something that's really popular and has a lot of content, you're going to get some shovelware, whether that be consoles, PC gaming, DVDs, VHS, movies, whatever. But I mean, it's about the volume. It's like you can't beat that. Like even if Disney comes out with their thing and they're like, yeah, okay, we're gonna have 20 shows. Yeah, that's nice, but on average, like not everyone, like even if you really love Disney, not everyone likes every fucking Disney property, you know?
right. Which is why
Um,
you provide them alternatives.
and yeah, and that's where Netflix kind of has them beat, is because Disney has a certain brand that they have and certain shit under that brand, whereas Netflix, let's say you like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for like 3-4 months, maybe half a year, they'll have the TMNT cartoons on Netflix, and you can binge them if you like watching that shit. They might have James Bond, like all the James Bond films. You can binge all that shit if you want to watch it. Like, I mean, there's certain things you're not going to be able to get at Disney. Like I don't think Disney anytime soon is going to make a Marvel Netflix style TV show that's as bloody and dark as The Punisher
Or Daredevil.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but that's not Disney's brand, and that's why they bought Fox, so they can do stuff like that. But even then, it's probably going to be called under Fox. You know what I mean? Kind of like how they did with Miramax back in the day, and Touchstone, stuff like that. So, but I mean, like I wouldn't compare Netflix to Walmart, because Walmart is kind of a ripoff, because they're like, we're here for value and savings. But if you price compare certain things from Walmart to other stores in your area, you might find Walmart might be the more expensive alternative. So, you got to shop around. His next question comes from the interviewer. He says, no, sorry, that takes investment. Do you anticipate a Netflix type increase in spending? He says, no. First of all, I don't know what Netflix is spending. You may know more than I do. If you really look across all of our businesses and you include ESPN and ABC News and what we're buying with Fox, we probably spend upwards of what they're spending. It's just that we're distributing it differently. So the pivot for us is not necessarily substantially more spending, it's substantially different distribution. But while we're migrating to new distribution models, we have to spend enough to populate the new distribution until we move content on the older ones over. So basically, until the rights run out with all the other shit that's still tied up with old stuff, they're going to lose money on their streaming service, as we already know.
Right. Because we know that all the programs at Netflix were all licensed, and they'll eventually go away once those licenses expired.
Yeah, but a lot of those licenses are like the Disney the Marvel licenses go out at the end of this year. Maybe like I think the end of like the beginning of next year. 2019 is when it's all over with the movies. But from what I've heard, Daredevil, The Defenders, fucking Jessica Jones, The Punisher, that stuff might stay over there just because, you know, it's kind of like, it would be weird. Like, I don't think Disney has the pipeline in place to really put those types of shows together. But I could be wrong. I mean, if they just say, hey, we're going to take because this isn't the first time that a show has left one network and gone to another network and been just fine. So that could be the case. Perhaps, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, Netflix is moving towards making more original stuff. But like I said, a lot of their stuff that they do have license for is on like a rotation, you know, and it's pretty good. So maybe it'll continue to be good. So another question he asked is Ken Zifrin wrote a recent piece for the Hollywood Reporter estimating $2 billion of revenue from various windows will go away when you put this content into the new streaming service. Okay, I could go over this, but basically it's what I just said, that like a lot of that stuff is kind of like gonna go away from Netflix and other platforms so that they can put it into their own platform. But while they're doing that, as the transition goes, they're going to be losing money from those other revenue streams. So Disney's not going to be doing too well financially for the next 2 or 3 years. I just want people to know that. If you own Disney stock, do not sell it. It's just going to go down a little bit. His next question says, the Fox deal has brought a lot of new people into your company. How much does the question of who will succeed you impact the discussion of how to integrate these people? He says, very good question. We're going to take the best people from both companies, and that's who's going to basically be on the playing field for us, meaning talent will prevail. Fox Searchlight is a great example. You look at FX, Nat Geo, yeah, you're buying libraries and brands, but you're also buying the people. I'm not going to talk about specific people right now, except to say that I've met with virtually the entire senior management team at Fox, and I'm not only fully engaged with them on what possibilities for them might be, but I'm excited about the prospects. So what he's not saying is that a lot of people are going to get fired. A lot of people.
Yeah.
Because the best and the brightest only make up about 5% of the pool. The other 95 are like the people who are good. Some of those might be carried over. The people who are okay, a few of those might be carried over, and everyone else is going to be fucked. His next question is, Rupert Murdoch will be one of your biggest shareholders. Are you prepared for him wanting to get you on the phone at all hours? He says, Rupert's been able to get me on the phone whenever he wanted to anyway. Laugh in italics and quotate in parentheses. I've had a good relationship with Rupert over the years, and it's been one of mutual respect. I'm not in any way talking about politics, but he's impressed me with his guts and vision. If he's got an idea or two as a shareholder that he wants to give me, that's not necessarily bad news. He may think ABC News is too liberal. He says, I'm not too worried about that at all. He's smarter than that. Plus, he's a competitor in that regard. I mean, this is basically just kind of like rich dudes talking about how they have a different perspective on things because they're rich.
Yeah. So nothing much to say, at least.
Yeah. So here's where we get here's where we get into the kind of cool stuff. You've had shakeups at the various businesses this past year. How's ESPN changed specifically, if at all? He says, I have nothing but praise for the job Jimmy Pitaro has done at ESPN. There's been a big debate on whether ESPN should focus more on what happens on the field of the sport than what happens in terms of where the sports is so societally and politically. And Jimmy felt that the pendulum may have swung a little bit too far away from the field. I happen to believe he was right. And it's something, by the way, that I think John Skipper had come to recognize as well. But Jimmy, coming in fresh, has had the ability to address it, I think, far more aggressively and effectively. He has brought back some balance.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this just comes from someone who's a poli-sci and sociology person, but I think the two are inextricably linked. But that's just me. I only have mountains of history backing up my statement. So he says, how involved do you get in decisions to cancel Roseanne at ABC or fire James Gunn at Marvel? Okay, I would say that there's what?
The real juicy bits.
Yeah, we're getting to the nitty gritty now. I would say that there is a blend of my helping to make the decisions to my supporting the decisions that have been made. So Roseanne was completely unanimous. We discussed how it would be communicated and when, because there were a number of entities that had to be properly filled in. But the decision was completely unanimous. The James Gunn decision was brought to me as a unanimous decision of a variety of executives at the studio, and I supported it. There was backlash. You still supported. I haven't second guessed their decision. All right. So, I mean, I guess we can get Roseanne out the way. I mean,
and talk about James Gunn.
Yeah, like, okay, here's the thing, okay? You cannot be Disney, a company that wants everyone to spend your money on their products at your parks and stuff like that, and have a white lady. And I know Roseanne Barr identifies as being Jewish, but you cannot have, for all intents and purposes, she's a white lady. You cannot have a white lady call a black person a monkey and then have her ass still be working there the next day. You can't. Okay? And then you want people of all different ethnicities, including black people, to come to your parks, buy your products, all that type of stuff. You can't, you can't have that. Okay?
So that's why Roseanne got fired.
Yeah, she tweeted a picture of a black lady, and she's like, yeah, next to a picture of a Planet of the Apes person. She's like, well, they look like they're related, haha. And she's like, yeah, and then she tried to say, well, I was having trouble sleeping, I was on Ambien. It's like, let me tell you something. There are many things I've done when I've had trouble sleeping. Tweeting a racist tweet is not one of them. You know?
Yeah. And the sad part is, that racist stereotype is still being used today on one of the more edgy websites like 4chan.
Yeah, it's still they still like to call black people. They still like to equate black people with monkeys, which is kind of like, I'm like, really okay. Where was I? Oh yes. So the James Gunn thing. Look, listen. All right. Okay, so Roseanne Barr absolutely had to go. James Gunn. Here's the thing. Okay. If they hadn't let Roseanne Barr go immediately, if they had been like, well, we got to think about it, they probably wouldn't have had to let James Gunn go. But like, they can't let Roseanne Barr go and then not let James Gunn go, even though the two offenses are drastically different. Okay, James Gunn made a series of really bad child molestation jokes. And when I say bad, I don't mean particularly heinous. I just mean in very bad taste.
Yeah.
Now the double whammy is that he had a associate, not an associate, an acquaintance who was convicted of child molestation. So kind of, you know, a little close to home, you know, a little bit.
Definitely.
But you know, does that mean that, you know, James Gunn? It's sad that James Gunn had to go, but they can't fire Roseanne's ass and then not fire him for doing, even though, like I said, the two things were completely different. Okay, Roseanne Barr is, I mean, she's kind of been off the chain for years. They should have never, if they were going to bring back the Roseanne show, they should have just like brought it back without Roseanne, like kind of like how they're doing now.
But how can you bring back the Roseanne show without Roseanne? Because it's kind of like bringing in a Mega Man game without Mega Man.
No. Look at how they basically did that shit with what's his name? Well, I want to say Archie Bunker, where they had Archie Bunker where his wife dies and you just keep it going. Yeah, I know Roseanne's a major part of it, but I mean, like people have passed on and the show still went on. They just had to readjust shit. It's like that 70s show when they got rid of Eric Foreman, where Eric Foreman left. I forgot his real name. Topher Grace. Topher Grace left. They still kept it going, even though he was like the main character of the show. Like you can, if you have a good enough writing staff, you can write it out. Like because like the final season of the Roseanne show was kind of shit anyway, because it turns out that Dan had a stroke, had a heart attack, and died in the original run. And everything she'd been writing after he had his heart attack was just her as a writer creating this this fiction, right? And it was kind of shit. So why not do something different? Why don't you say, okay, well, Dan's alive, but she died? Because I mean, that's a family that had some really fucked up shit going on in it. That would have been interesting to see what's going on with this working class family. But you know, because here's the thing, Roseanne is too much of a how can I put this? Okay, it's like having someone in your family who's a crackhead, right?
Right.
And you keep on letting them in your house with no supervision, and you act surprised when they steal your shit. Like that's Roseanne. She's the crackhead that like they shouldn't, like at a certain point, like you got to stop letting the crackhead in your house with no supervision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's basically Roseanne. So they shouldn't have. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, I never thought she was that funny, but I mean, I know a lot of people like her. But I mean, they couldn't, like, if they fired her ass, then James Gunn had to go too. It couldn't have been equal way. Even though, you know, it's sad that James Gunn had to go because it was, you know, a plot to fuck with people. But you know, that's what you get for having poor humor, Jimmy. You know, look, listen, you can get away with a lot of shit if you're funny, but when you're not funny,
that's when we have problems.
yeah, like when you say something offensive and it's not funny, that's the worst thing, and that's the problem with James Gunn's jokes. Plus, they were in really bad taste. So the next thing is he asked, the interviewer asked, has the culture at Pixar changed at all in the past 8 months since the exit of John Lasseter? He says, anytime that you change leadership, there's an inevitable cultural shift. There was a cultural shift at Disney when I took over from Michael Eisner after 21 years. John Lasseter, when it was in his role for a long time, had an enormous influence on both the culture and creativity of Pixar. And so, of course, in John leaving, there was an inevitable cultural shift. To get into the details, I'd prefer not to. Oh, you mean the fact that John Lasseter was accused of improper touching and sexual groping? What?
Sexual harassment?
Yeah, and sexual harassment and groping female employees. Yeah, sure. We can.
Well, from what I've heard, all he did was just surprise hug them like a bear.
Yeah, but women don't like that.
I mean, he does that to everyone.
Yeah, but women don't like that. Like women, okay, women don't like, okay, let me put it this way, okay? If some random person came up to you, right, even if it was your boss, and just gave you a bear hug, because we're human beings and we have personal space, we have a certain amount of space that we're comfortable with having around us, right? And depending on the bigger someone is, the more personal space they want to have. So like if you're, but I mean that's like a natural thing. If some and here's the thing, if you're someone who doesn't want to be hugged and someone does it anyway, and from, I mean, like here's the thing. Okay, if it was just one or two women, but there's like 10, 15, 20 women that came forward and said, yeah, he groped me and improperly touched me, like not all 20 women could be lying, statistically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at a certain point, you just got to say, a culture of John going around trying to finger women or whatever he was doing. They didn't want him touching them, and he did. So, I mean, he had to go. I mean, I know people might like Toy Story, but I don't like Toy Story enough to let a sexual predator continue to work in a place molesting people. So he says, so another question is, what has changed within Disney as a whole result of the Me Too movement? He says, I don't want to talk about anybody specifically, but it's critical for us as leaders in this industry to create safe environments for people who have been victims of abuse to speak up and feel safe about speaking up, and for others who have witnessed abuse to do the same. It's critical. As difficult as this time may seem, it's high time that we all woke up to the need to protect the people that work for us and work with us. Okay. I don't think that needs to be dissected. Should be fairly obvious. Because if he didn't say that, there would be there would be pitchforks going to Burbank and getting him and killing him now. Maybe not killing him, but there would be pitchforks. How are you doing that? First of all, you have to address the specific issues with people, but beyond that, you have to make sure that you're applying one standard to the company for all. There aren't two standards based on title, rank, importance, talent, whatever. Second, you've got to communicate very, very effectively to people that if they are a victim, if they have witnessed this, they must come forward, because in not doing so, they are only perpetuating an unsafe work environment, and that's not good. Now, here's what I'm going to say, all right? I said this earlier. If they let Roseanne's ass go, James Gunn didn't have a chance. Because, like I said, the dude says here, there aren't two standards. You can't let one person go, but then keep this other person over here. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a double standard.
They couldn't do it. And to be fair, I mean, even though I feel sorry for James Gunn, but I mean, like, they couldn't do it. It's like it's like if your parents of two kids and you tell them, hey, don't go out, don't break your curfew after 11 p.m. Right? Both your kids do it, and one kid you're like, okay, I said don't break the curfew, and you wouldn't have car privileges. Well, you don't have car privileges, but the other kid, okay, well, you can use the car, but only to get from home to school. Like, you can't do that. You got to be equal to both of them.
Yeah.
When they fuck up like that. So, Disney, the parents had to step in and be equal and fair to both sides. They couldn't fuck it up. I know some people are going to get mad when they say that, but but what about Guardians of the Galaxy? I'm like, what about it? It'll be fine. They'll come up with something else. If Marvel could create an entire cinematic universe using their throwaway characters, trust me, they can figure something out with the Guardians of the Galaxy. All right. So the next question, this comes to something that people might like. How is Marvel going to absorb Fox's X-Men franchise? Is Kevin Feige going to oversee everything? I think it only makes sense. I want to be careful here because of what's been communicated to the Fox folks, but I think they know. It only makes sense for Marvel to be supervised by one entity. There shouldn't be two Marvels.
This is a big no duh moment.
No shit, Sherlock. And a whole bunch of those Fox, a lot of those Fox movies, everyone's like, yeah, like Fox kept on pumping out these shitty movies. Yeah, we're gonna do Dark Phoenix. We're gonna do this. Oh well, good luck with that, motherfucker. We're gonna do all these movies. They're gonna be awesome. I'm like, yeah, you just keep on thinking that. just keep on keeping on. Those shitty Fox X-Men movies. And I know some people are gonna get mad, but let's be honest. Out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Out of the 14 Fox superhero movies, only about 5 of them are good. So roughly about 37%, 38%. And I mean, if you got a 38% on a test, that's still an F. So, I mean, Fox has not necessarily been good with the Marvel brand. Okay.
Right.
So he says, so Deadpool could become an Avenger. He says Kevin's got a lot of ideas. I'm not suggesting that's one of them, but who knows?
Well, Kevin is suggesting doing a Silver Surfer movie. That's one thing we know from him.
Here's all I'm gonna say: as long as I get a good Fantastic Four movie, that's all I want. I want a good Fantastic Four movie for once in my fucking life. That isn't just some bullshit thrown out there because they need to keep the license in hand or whatever. So he says, so finally we get, many believe Disney should pump the brakes and not put out a Star Wars movie each year. And so he says, I made the timely decision, and as I look back, I think the mistake that I made, I take the blame, was a little too much, too fast. You can expect some slowdown, but that doesn't mean we're not going to make films. It says JJ is busy making episode 9. We have creative entities, including Game of Thrones creators Benioff and Weiss, who are developing sagas of their own, which we haven't been specific about. And we are just at the point where we're going to start making decisions about what comes next after JJ's. But I think we're going to be a little more careful about volume and timing, and the buck stops here on that. Ooh, boy.
Well, at least that means that they're going to be slowing down on the yearly Star Wars releases to prevent the fatigue.
I think if you look between the lines on that little paragraph tells you so much. Number one, they're slowing down all these damn movies, which they should have done in the first place. Okay, like they should have gone back to the original thing where you get one new mainline Star Wars thing every 3 years. Period. Regardless, every 3 years you get a new one. The standalones are fine, and I wouldn't mind standalones in those off years, but you need to let people know that they're standalone. They're something different. They're not the mainline thing. And don't spend mainline money on a standalone. There's no reason for that. Finally, I think this pretty much confirms, or at least strongly confirms, strongly hints at that little trilogy that Rian Johnson was going to have. Yeah, that shit ain't happening.
But didn't he just tweet it that it's still going on?
Yeah. Let me put it this way, okay? I strongly think that shit's not happening. You know what I think's going to happen with Star Wars? I think that JJ's going to get his film out next year. And I think that they're going to take a step back. I think that all those little those spin-off films they were talking about are going to be gone. I think within the next year, probably also like after the new movie comes out, JJ's last episode 9 film, I think you're gonna see Kathleen Kennedy. She's gonna either leave, either she's gonna retire from her role as leading that shit, and Ryan Johnson's trilogy is gonna be gone. Because you notice in that thing he didn't say Ryan Johnson's trilogy, and neither did he mention Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, I noticed.
I mean, don't you? So that tells you something. Like Ryan Johnson can tweet whatever the fuck he wants. just like Josh Trank tweeted that Fantastic Four stick was there was a good cut of that movie, and the guy who wrote the script for that movie is like, yeah, we're gonna totally work on a sequel. Yeah, good luck with that. Okay. Like, you just, it, no, I don't know. No, it's like there's not going to be a Justice League 2. There's not going to be another Man of Steel. Like, there may be a Suicide Squad 2, but it's going to be vastly different in tone than anything that came before it. So, I mean, the hammer had to be dropped. I mean, how do you fuck up one of the most valuable IPs in the movie industry? And they managed to do that. It's amazing. But anyway,
now, the last part of the interview talks about Disneyland and the legal and how they're going to allow alcohol into their parks and how.
Yeah, but it's Star Wars land, which makes sense because I mean, if you lived in that shitty ass, depressing universe, you need to drink. I mean, hell, you got crazy motherfuckers going around blowing up planets. You got motherfuckers with magic powers going around strangling people from another planet away. You got other crazy ass motherfuckers flying around in ships blowing up people. I mean, hell, if you had to live in that universe, look, there's no wonder there's spice and prostitution and drugs and alcohol in the Star Wars universe because sober people can't live in that shit.
Not to mention, and keep in mind that the reason why the parks were alcohol free in the first place is because Walt wanted to make sure the parks was unique compared to the other amusement parks where they were much dirtier and back then. But times has changed now, so
here's all I'm going to say is this:
those amusement parks are much cleaner these days.
Here's all I'm going to say to that: Walt Disney needs to shut the fuck up because he was a damn coke fiend. Which I think is a little bit worse than alcohol. Because people on air don't come up with talking nice.
Don't you mean a heavy smoker? I mean, it's how he got cancer and died.
Yeah, but he also was really heavily addicted to cocaine. Yeah, he was addicted to cocaine. He was a coke fiend. He was a cokehead. And he was rich, so he could get the good shit. A lot of the famous people that we know and love were on shit that was kind of really addictive. Cary Grant was heavily into Quaaludes, and LCD, acid. Yeah, he would drop acid. Matter of fact, if you read his biography, there's a thing where he talks about how he dropped acid one time. And basically, like he got so high that he shit all over himself. He said it was the best bowel movement he'd ever had. Yeah, let me tell you something, man. Like it's hilarious when I hear people say so and so was such a great, so and so was fucked up. Do not hold these people on a high pedestal. They were pieces of shit just like anybody else.
Same with Gandhi as well.
Even Gandhi, yeah. He liked sleeping with his young female relatives naked. Ew.
Yeah.
So finally, we get funny. Walt did specifically say no booze at Disneyland. He says, yeah, except I think Walt had a nip or two at his apartment at night. I'm a big believer in tradition. That seems to be like one of those traditions that if we changed it, the empire wasn't going to crumble. Fair enough. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that was exactly what I said about how alcohol used to be not allowed in Disneyland because of what I just previously stated, because he wanted the park to be cleaner than your typical amusement park back in those days.
I think it was more like they wanted to be this family-friendly type of place. And it's really hard to do that when you've got drunks going around, starting fights, cussing folks out, spitting around. And Disneyland, even with all of that, is still a very, like, it's very regimented. Like, just very, very regimented.
And with that said, that's pretty much all there is to this article.
Yeah, and we started a little bit earlier because it was easier. So I guess we can get to that other news of the week. So I guess we can talk about the other big news, which I guess someone really wanted to see really want to see Batman's dick. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I mean, look, here's the thing. Here's all I got to say to you, DC. Are your numbers so bad that you have to resort to showing Batman's dick to sell a comic? Seriously?
People will go crazy over the smallest things.
Yeah, and having seen Batman's dick in this comic, I agree. It is a very small thing. It is not really impressive. I mean, there's a reason he's a rich white guy who drives around in a big car with all types of weapons and gadgets, beating up criminals who aren't nearly as trained as he is. Because he's trying to compensate for something, and now we know what it is. It's not just because his parents were murdered by Joe Chill. No. He's trying to compensate because he feels inadequate as a man. But yeah, it's I mean, this kind of isn't news. I just find it amusing that their numbers must be so bad that they had to do a stunt like this. That's kind of weird. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and all I have to say, this is like the equivalent of people obsessing over Luigi's mushroom from the Mario Tennis Aces renders.
Yeah, but I mean, Nintendo didn't put that in there. Like, literally, this would like be if Nintendo said, "Okay, you guys are curious what Link's dick looks like. Well, guess what? Here it is. Do 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 do. You know, like this would be like if Nintendo, but Nintendo wouldn't do that because I mean, yeah, Nintendo. There was a time when Nintendo, the company, owned a string of love hotels where people went to get their jollies on, and they sold Nintendo branded condoms.
But however, I also remember that there is an official licensed Mario manga that shows Mario's penis in one of the panels.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that with a double grain of salt. I'm gonna snort a line of salt before I believe that. But this is the same company that created Conker's Bad Fur Day branded condoms. Okay. But they knew how to compartmentalize these things. The day that Nintendo or any other company, the day that the Muppets goes, "Hey guys, guess what? Want to see what Kermit the Frog's dick looks like? Here you go, folks. Kermit the Frog's dick." It's like, I don't want to see Kermit the Frog's dick. Please don't do that.
Neither do I.
That's disgusting.
Especially when I'm browsing through some porn website to look for some porn videos or whatnot.
I just don't want to see it, okay? Especially not from the not from the Henson Company, or not from Nintendo showing Mario's dick, or Sega showing Sonic's dick. I just don't want to see. Like, here's the thing: when the company that owns the IP is doing this, it's sad. Stop it. Stop it. Make good comics. No one needs to see Batman's dick.
So what about Catwoman's nipples? I think no one's gonna be bothered by it.
I mean, like, here's the thing, okay? I have nothing against nudity in comics if it serves the story, okay? Like if you see Bruce Wayne and Catwoman getting it on and it's important for the story, knock yourself out. I don't care about Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne getting it on, because I mean, they're always cat scratching back and forth. Batman really likes chasing after that pussy. Cat. but I mean, like, and if you showed nudity with that, it doesn't, because that serves the story. Like, seeing her naked, like that, that kind of, depending on what's going on, I could see it. There is no reason I could think of to see Batman's dick, especially when he's not doing anything with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not even a sex scene. It's just, I'm getting out of Alfred. I'm getting out of the Batmobile, and my dick's just out of my pants. Like, there's no reason for your dick to be out of your pants, dude. None. They just, look, this was a publicity stunt. This had nothing to do with telling a story or just trying to get people. It's there to get people to buy their shitty comic. We need a good story. No, we just need to show Batman's dick.
Didn't Marvel used to do this as well in their Ultimate series?
You mean the Ultra label? That was basically the R-rated. The Ultra labels thing had sex, but you didn't really see men's junk. You saw like women, nudity in women, and ultra, like, really fucking gory shit, but not like men's junk. I mean, frankly speaking, I don't want to see a man's junk. I'd rather see a woman's junk, because I mean, I'm a heterosexual man. That looks much better than me than a dude's junk. But whatever. Maybe there's some dude who likes looking at dudes' junks. I don't know, or a lady that likes looking at dudes' junk. I don't know, but I don't want to see it. But this leads me to the to the other big news this week. A guy who formerly wrote the scripts for Bert and Ernie on Sesame Street, who happens to be gay, claims that Bert and Ernie, since he identified with them, he and his partner, who had names that were similar to Bert and Ernie, his name is Bert, his partner's name is Arnie, short for Arnold. So they're Bert and Arnie. Projected himself onto the characters, and he claims that he felt when he was writing for them that they were gay.
Well, I mean, isn't Bert and Ernie being gay a longly accepted theory amongst the Sesame Street fandom?
Not really, no. It's a meme that people created, but it's not true. Like, people have this belief that Bert and Ernie were in the tub together, but they've never been in the tub together. The only time Bert and Ernie have been in the tub, because I have the little children's book, is that there's this children's book you can get that's about like baby Bert and baby Ernie. And the thing is like, there's plenty, like in real life, people who have like little kids, like twins, and like little kids that are like being watched by a relative or something, they'll wash them all together because little kids don't like bathing, and sometimes it's easier just to put them all in one big bathtub than try and wash them separately. So, I mean, that's not exactly, because children don't really, like, little children don't really have much concept of gender, so they weren't gay then. So, I mean, not in the show have they ever been in the bathtub together at the same time. And just for confirmation, people asked Frank Oz, the guy who created Bert and Ernie, and did the voice for them. Were they gay? And he's like, no. Well, they're puppets. They're genderless, but no, they're not gay. He says they were made to create. They were created to show that people who have vastly different temperaments and personality styles can still get along. So
Right, because we know that Bert is rather kind of like Squidward, where he's always grumpy.
well, I was going to say Bert's really uptight and he's very organized, and Ernie is a slobby asshole. Not a slob to the level of Oscar the Grouch, but he's like, you know, kind of an asshole. So they don't get along because one guy's a total asshole. Fairly easy. What other news do we have? I think that's it. Any other?
I'm gonna go check if there's any Marvel related news.
The Captain Marvel trailer dropped.
Yeah, and apparently the scene with her punching an old woman has become a meme.
Come on, man.
And of course, there are two scenarios that could happen from that scene. Either one, that old woman was a Skrull, or two, she's not a Skrull, and Captain Marvel just accidentally just hit an innocent old lady.
Let me put it this way, okay? Look, either the old lady is a Skrull in disguise, or it's a Kree in disguise. It's probably going to be a Skrull in disguise. They're taking cues from the Secret Invasion. Hopefully, these aren't super Skrulls, but just normal Skrulls. Because there's three types of Skrull invasions. There was the one that was stopped by the Fantastic Four, where in the cartoon they tricked the Skrulls into by making them watch old monster movies, like giant monster, like giant prehistoric monsters. Like, yeah, the Earth is full of giant prehistoric monsters, and the Skrulls were like, man, fuck this planet, it's horrific, and they left. in the cartoon, in the comics, the Skrulls could shapeshift, and basically like they shapeshifted in the cows, and Dr. Reed Richards put them out in the field, and they were perfectly content just chewing cud and eating grass and hanging out in a field. And then the second Skrull invasion was once again against the Fantastic Four, where the Super Skrulls came in, or I should say the one Super Skrull, which was a Skrull that had all the abilities of every other member of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I know him.
And that's it. Like he had the strength of Ben Grimm, the stretch abilities of Mr. Fantastic, the fire abilities of the Human Torch, and he could turn invisible like Sue Storm. So I mean, it wasn't, I mean, Fantastic Four. I mean, they beat him because basically they confused his abilities and they combined their abilities and beat him, and then sent him packing. And then you have the third Skrull invasion, which involves basically Mar-Vell and Carol Danvers, and basically because Mar-Vell is a Kree, and the Kree Empire and the Skrull Empire are constantly jockeying for superiority. What?
Or territory?
Well, territory and superiority. Basically, it's like two massive empires that are really powerful fighting it out against each other. And Earth is just a fucking beachhead. Like, our planet is so inconsequential to their battle. They don't even give a shit aside from just using Earth as a beachhead and a base so that they can go and launch a strike against the other empire. And so that's where the Skrull come in. Because they want to basically, like, if they can't take Earth as a base, they'll destroy it to deny it to the Kree. And the Kree are kind of at that point there, but they already have a base on Earth. It was just a hidden base. But basically, they're both kind of assholes. It's just one is a little bit more of a dick than the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, but the Skrull are really big about like disguising themselves. That's what the first Secret Invasion was all about. Like all these superheroes had been captured, not murdered. They were just put in stasis and then replaced with Kree. I mean, sorry, with Skrull doppelgangers who look just like the original people, but they're the doppelgangers. I'm just like, why didn't you kill the original people? That was kind of like my one thing. I was like, well, wouldn't it make sense to kill the original so that, like, if shit didn't go right, you could blend in and have an exit plan? But whatever. But yeah, Carol Danvers is not punching some little old lady in the face because superheroes don't murder innocent people unless you're Man of Steel Superman, and then you're fucked. You're SOL because he will destroy your city and then try and fuck his girlfriend on the rubble.
Oh, here's something I forgot to mention during our discussion with the Bob Iger interview. Loki and Scarlet Witch are getting their own TV series on Disney's streaming service.
That's right. I guess Loki's thing is going to be like a prequel, like what he was doing between the events of the Avengers,
Ragnarok.
Well, Avengers and Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War. Like what was the Loki doing then? Because really, I think he did. I think Thanos killed his ass in Infinity War. I don't think he's gonna make it out of this one.
or maybe a prequel of his times before the events of the first Thor movie.
Oh, that'd be cool. And Scarlet Witch, I mean, like, I'm not sure I want to see a TV show about those two characters, but whatever. I don't. I mean, do you want to see a show about those two characters?
Well, maybe Loki, but maybe not Scarlet Witch.
I mean, if they're going to do a Scarlet Witch show, then it needs to be about mutants.
But at least it's not as bad as Sony's plans on making spin-off movies of obscure Spider-Man characters.
Yeah, like, okay, I'll tell you what would make it interesting. If you did a Scarlet Witch, because now that Disney and Fox have their shit together, they can actually call these characters mutants. So if you do a show about Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, and her brother Pietro,
Quicksilver.
Yeah, well, Pietro, Quicksilver. If you do a show about them basically coming to peace with their father being Magneto, and Magneto being a fucking dick, and how they basically like deal with the fact that Magneto is a dick, and yet they want to be heroes. That could be a very interesting story. Like maybe like 10, 13 episodes. Like have other mutants in there, like them having to deal with the fact that their father's a major villain, yet they don't want to be villains. And like how they have this crisis of conscience because they want to learn more about their father, but they also don't want to be like their father. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as long as they get rid of the whole almost incestuous tendencies that Quicksilver has with his sister, it'll be fine. Because he totally wants to fuck his sister.
I'm pretty sure that only applies to the Ultimate version.
No, he has a very unhealthy relationship with his sister. It's really fucking creepy, actually. Like, really fucking creepy. Like, Jesus Christ, bro.
I don't know why that sort of relationship is starting to become popularized in the mainstream.
I don't know either, but I'm just glad they didn't put it in any of the movies or TV shows or anything because it's just really fucking creepy. But yeah, I think that could work. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap things up?
Let's see. Marvel hints the death of Daredevil in the comics.
The death of Daredevil. Yeah, I heard that.
Though we do know that superheroes don't stay dead.
Yeah, Daredevil's been killed before, so.
And with that said, I think that's about it in regards to sci-fi related news.
Okay, then. So that's the end of the podcast. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe. We're trying to grow. We're trying to grow the Sci-Fi Power Hour ish. It's not going to be as big as BS Busters because that's the bread and butter of the channel. But I like talking about this stuff. So, with that being said, that's the end of the podcast. Thank you and have a good day. Oh, pimp out. Which one to pimp up? Pinky.
Oh, this is Piggy Don from Video Game Facts, where we talk about the facts and opinions on the gamosphere. Right now, I just posted an article talking about Retro Studios celebrating its 20th anniversary yesterday.
Yeah, I remember seeing
and
that.
I'm gonna go pump up an upcoming article in regards to today's Splatfest, and and who's gonna win. It's a battle between modern versus retro, and I'm on team retro.
All right. Okay, then. So that's the end of the podcast. I was not playing Splatoon or anything like that. So peace.